Hey monkeys, how you doing? Damian Keys here. It is a new week and a new show. So it's the hashtag Ask Damo show number 12. Nice. So this is the show where we talk about mostly music industry, bands, social media, business, whatever it is on your mind that you need answers to, then we will do our best to answer it. With me as always is Melissa.
Hey.
So we have some questions?
We have some questions.
I love that we still have questions. Don't have any presents, but we do have questions.
I've got a bucket load of questions for you.
We do. Good. In that case, why don't we crack on with some questions?
Cool. So the first one is from Amelia, who's asking, can you give some advice on copywriting original songs?
Yes, and to be honest with you, I could do 5 different shows on copywriting because there is so many sort of slight intricacies, and I'm not a music industry lawyer, so I wouldn't want to go into too much detail. But what this comes down to is, how can you be safe that what you're writing is not going to get nicked, and if it does get nicked, that you have got some say and some comeback in doing it. Now, we live in a very, very different time than we did, and I talk quite a lot about rules and how they were used to be broken, and now they're not so much broken anymore, they're just not there anymore. So back in the day, which was a Wednesday, what you used to do for copyright was you used to have to take your music to either a solicitor or to the bank to actually get to actually get it registered so it was in a place. And there's a lot of what people call poor man copyright, where you can seal it in an envelope and get it timestamped by getting it sort of sent to yourself by recorded delivery, and those things are still a thing that you can do. However, we do live in a different time in 2017, and most of the stuff we do is in some way timestamped. So what this is about proof, and how much proof you've got. So should it get somewhere, should you write a song and then it gets nicked by Adele or Bruno Mars, and there is some real money into it, then what is it that you can do? And so having your song documented and timestamped is kind of important. And with social media, that is definitely a thing. Now, I'm not saying it's the be all and end all, but again, this comes down to proof. So when you do get to that final stage and all of a sudden you're sat in court, and it's sort of your word against mine. I wrote the song, no, I wrote the song, no, I wrote the song. Then it will come down to, well, hang on, who's got the proof? Who is most likely to have who has written a song? You okay?
Yes, sorry. Trying to do this subtly.
So who's got the most proof? And so this is a really good example why documenting what you're doing is very, very important. So things like when you're writing songs, when you are recording them on your phone and then posting them to YouTube or posting them to social media, there will be elements of timestamping. Now, it's not bulletproof because it can be erased, it can be deleted, but it is a very, very good start. And so what I'd like to see more bands doing is actually documenting their journey. One thing you can do is, if the song is finished and you don't want to show the world, you can put it on YouTube and actually make it private so that people can't see it, but it's still there and it's still time-stamped. It's a funny subject that we were talking about earlier, because there are certain sort of stipulations and sort of things in place which don't work quite as well. There's always ways around it. But the main thing for me is you want to make sure your songs are copyrighted, but I hate it when I get questions, which I get quite a lot, where band members have fallen out and they've kind of said, well, it's kind of my song and it's my song. One thing you've got to do is you've got to remember that you want to make sure that something's done for the future, but there is no point in spending a lot of time and effort and energy arguing about this stuff if there is no reason to as such. So if the song is just, you're in a band, you've written a song, there's no record deal, there's no publishing deal, there's no royalties as such, you're still charging sort of £3 to £5 to get into a gig, so you're making 30 quid from a gig, then what you're doing is wasting time and energy, and you can spend a lot of time and effort and energy on who wrote what song and who did what. One other part of this is for Amelia, I'm sure she's writing her own songs, but what happens when you do co-writes? And this is why I could spend all day talking about this. What happens when you do co-writes? who wrote what? And if you wrote the lyrics but someone else wrote the music, how does it work? Is that a 50-50 split? Well, the answer is no. That's not the way it works. It doesn't work as lyrics is 50% and music is 50%. And it also doesn't work with a band that it has to be, in a 4-piece band, 25% each. These are things that you can actually put into play. So you can say, look, I feel like I wrote 80% of the song and you wrote 20% of the song. And if you agree with that, then that's what it is. If you want it to be 50-50 with the lyrics and the music, you can be. But you can make your rules up with this, as long as it's documented and it is somewhere that you can look back on it and say, look, these are the rules. You emailed me. It's got a timestamp on it. You said this, and I can show this to the people that need to know, and they can actually agree with me that you said you would take 20% and I would take 80%. So, but for me, I would say just keep it real simple at the beginning of a band until you get to the point where this stuff really, really matters. What I would do is I would spend time documenting the songs that you're writing so that you've got them timestamped, and nowadays you can do that, because what used to be the case is it used to actually get recorded onto a cassette, onto your 4-track or your 8-track, and there's no proof because there's no timestamp on a cassette, so therefore it could have been recorded at any time. Nowadays everything's got a timestamp. Even when you actually are in a recording session with someone else and you can actually record it to your phone and it's got a timestamp on it, it's still an extra thing. So it's not about doing one thing, in my opinion, at this stage. I mean, when you go down the line and you're a published writer, and all of a sudden everything that you do has got musical connotations, you know, there are other ways that there's plenty of things online that you can sign up to, that you can send your music to them, and they'll have like a monthly subscription. There's plenty of things that you can do, but at this stage, for most artists, what I would look to do is I'd look to bulletproof what you do across the line. If I'm writing with someone, I'll want it recorded whilst we're doing it there and then, so you can see that we both took part in the songwriting process. Once it's written, I'd want to sit with an acoustic guitar and I don't want to record it. I want to put it onto YouTube, even if I make that private, so therefore I've got more proof. And the more of these little things that you've got, the easier it is to say, yeah, mate, honestly, you can take me to court because I've got proof here, that this is my song. And so that's the way I would do it. Now, you also need to know, again, more detail, but also you need to know what you can and can't copyright. So, for example, you can copyright lyrics, but it depends how many lyrics. So, for example, you can't copyright a song title because if you think about some of the songs that have been used the most, I think Let It Go has been used the most out of any song title ever. And so you could write a song called Let It Go and Disney can't copyright that song name. However, you can't copyright all the lyrics. So there is a fine line then between pinching a lyric, or pinching an idea, or pinching an entire verse, for example. So there's lots of intricacies on where you draw the line with that kind of stuff. Same thing with music. For example, you can't copyright chords, and you can't really copyright a chord progression as such, but then if it's very intricate with the chord progression along with the style, the sound, the tempo, and so all of a sudden there gets to a breaking point where you just go, well, hang on, that's too close, that's too much to it. So you need to understand those lines. But for the moment, keeping it very, very simple. It's not bulletproof, but you can send your music to yourself recorded delivery. You can put it on YouTube and it will be timestamped. You can record something on your phone and make sure you don't lose your phone or lose the data on your phone. It's just doing lots of little things, in my opinion, to make sure that if someone threatens you with court action, or if Adele releases a song and it goes to #1, you can say, I can prove this is mine without any shadow of a doubt. And if you really, really have got some time and some money, you can do that thing where you can go and find a solicitor and get it registered, should you want to.
Would you say as well, like, to save time and sort of energy, as you were saying, like, if you're going to go and do a collab with someone, just discussing it before and be like, if I'm writing the lyrics, could I have 10% of the songwriting? Like,
possibly, yeah. I mean, I think it all depends on how the relationship goes. I mean, the one thing that's very off-putting in business, and also off-putting in general, is when before you've even started doing something, you start discussing the money. It's like, ugh, I was discussing the money side to it, and we've not even created something. So there is this kind of balance between, oh shit, we've just written a number one hit single and we haven't discussed anything, but the other 9,999 times of, we're just going to get together, we're going to write something and see what happens. And there should be some kind of moralistic standpoint as well, where if we wrote a song together, we wrote it together.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be this kind of like, well, I'm the more experienced songwriter, so I should. I know that happens, but
normally it's quite easy to get just a negotiation.
I think
going
so,
between friends,
I think it's nice to just say, look, can we get together, write some songs? We'll just do a 50-50. As soon as someone says 50-50, no one's losing out, no one's gaining it. If they say, well, I kind of am a more experienced songwriter, so I want 60-40, then you can say, okay, or no, or whatever you want to do. But to be honest with you, I tend to go into songwriting, especially for, knowing where Amelia's at with her career, I tend to go into it with a very open, I just want to write songs, I want to get my music out there, and I just want to make sure that I'm safe, just in case I happen to stumble across a winning song, a winning formula, and they get stolen away from me, and I want to be able to prove that it's mine. When it comes to songwriting splits and all that kind of stuff, it can get quite messy.
Yeah.
It can get quite messy. So then it's up to you, and do the right thing. If someone has written more of the song, recognize it because they have. Don't, try and make things as fair as possible, because relationships in music last. The amount of times that 10 years or 20 years later you'll meet up in some capacity with someone from that period and you think to yourself, I'm glad we didn't fall out. I'm glad we still have a relationship because we've been thrown together in some part. And I could easily have done or said something to break this relationship. So try and keep things as fair as possible.
Yeah, in that sense, it's almost better to not take it too seriously at this.
I think
kind
so.
of level
At this
anyway.
stage, you'll know when it's serious. All of a sudden it's like, when you've got PRS and mechanicals and royalties and all that kind of stuff coming up, it's like this stuff is more serious. And there's probably people out there who are at that stage. Who probably will register all their songs via their solicitor or however it's going to work. But at this stage, for a lot of you artists out there, what you're doing there is you're taking the time and energy and effort away from the most important thing, which is how are you going to get the publishing deal? How are you going to get the hit record? How are you going to make the audience? The rest of it is very simple stuff that you just want to wrap up as you're going so that you're safe and protected, but not spend too much time, because when you start arguing with people about songwriting, it goes on forever. It's horrible.
Okay, cool. So we'll move on to question number 2. This is from Lacey, who said, I'd like to collaborate with other artists to build a following, but I also find it difficult writing in shared environments. How would you advise finding a collaboration that would work effectively?
Right, so I think it's same thing with anything, with business partners, with band members. It's got to click, it's got to feel right. And the way you do that is you experiment, just the same as a relationship. I mean, you go on, if you think about relationships, you go on dates, and on those dates you actually go, we've got a lot in common, this could work, and then from there it progresses stage by stage by stage. Just actually finding someone and out of the blue, or going into a bar and just saying, do you know what, should we get married? All of a sudden, too much. I think the way you do this is it's work, and it's also not pushing it too far too quickly. I think one thing that songwriters should do is they should get together with other songwriters from a learning process as well as a creative process. I think it's a really great thing to do. If I was a songwriter, I'd be looking at collaborating at least once, maybe twice a week, just to see what comes out of it. But I wouldn't put any pressure on it. I think to start with, it would just be like a first date. It would just be, I'll come over, I'll bring my piano, I'll bring my guitar, I've got some ideas for some lyrics. Let's just sit down for a couple of hours, have a chat, write a song, see what happens, and if it works, then we can go from there. So don't put too much pressure on it, because you might get there and you might think, I don't like the way they songwrite, or it doesn't really fit my genre, or whatever it is. That would just be too much pressure on the situation. So I think what's really, really important here is you take it slowly, like you take any relationship in general. You wouldn't just go into business with someone you met that day, because that would be a stupid thing to do. You take baby steps, but also you do the work, and you actually find 30, 40, 50, 60 songwriters who are prepared to write with you, and you take a chunk of your life, which could be 6 months or a year, to just write a bunch of songs. And some of them will fall away, and some of them will stick with you because you'll think, actually, I really like writing with you. Some people as well, and this is another thing, which I think this is a really important law in business, a thing about business, is is I want to work with people I like. I want to work with people I get on with. However, I also want the best people. Now, those two things don't always go hand in hand. I'm very lucky in the way that I work with lots of people I like, but I've been in plenty of businesses where I've had the best people working with me that I didn't particularly get on with that well. And so, you do have to use your judgment, but sometimes there could be an absolute winning formula with a songwriting partnership that you don't quite like the way they work. You don't quite like them as people. However, when it comes to the finished product, you do say, but it is better than anything I've written before. So therefore you do have to make a judgment call. There is this thing with music being so creative and so wonderful that you just think, I just want to work with the loveliest people. But you do have to get results. One thing we talk about when it comes to building audiences, when it comes to getting publishing deals, getting record deals, building businesses, the best strategy, the number one strategy over everything else, if you're looking at a strategy of a cannot fail strategy, the best way of doing it is just being better than everybody else. If you could put one thing down as the most important thing, being the best definitely works. If you're an athlete, if you run faster than everybody else, you are definitely in for a shot at winning an Olympic medal. And it's the same, it's the same thing. So you do want to find people that you connect with, but you also want to look at the end results and say, do you know what? Who is going to actually rein me in when I go on my I want to write in this style, and they're saying, actually, I think that lyric's a bit cheesy, and they're not letting you get away with things. So there's a mixture, but I think what's very, very important is that you're not just trying to find that songwriter straight away, and you're just starting off with finding lots and lots of songwriters and just seeing what happens to begin with. And that's a phrase I hate. Seeing what happens is something that in my life I don't like to do that. I don't like to see what happens. I like to actually go, no, that's what's going to happen. I'm going to make that happen. But I think when it comes to relationships, you can't do that. I think that a relationship does have to blossom, especially when it comes to creativity and songwriting and how people work. So
that's to do with luck as well, I guess.
Yeah, there's definitely luck. But again, you can definitely narrow the luck down, because if you write with 3 people, it's more about luck. If you write with 300 people, then
you'll find someone.
Someone. Yeah, exactly. You'll definitely put the work in. So, luck can always be negated by hard work, because the harder you work, the luckier you always get. And if you write 10 songs with 300 people, so that's 3,000 songs, there will be some gems in there. There will be a couple of songwriting partnerships that really blossom. It's just that people want to have a look around, see who can write some songs, do a collab. Did that work? Yes, maybe I'll carry on. Why not just actually say, look, I'm going to look at my diary and I'm going to try and make sure that I leave Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays, because I might only do one a week, but I've got those evenings for collabs, and I'm just going to start approaching bands and musicians and anybody, because you might also find that there's some hardcore songwriters in your area who are fantastic, but it doesn't work. You might find that there's just an amazing singer who just happens to be very talented at top-line melodies, and so I would really put the work in and just find lots and lots of people and just take the time. Again, goes back to patience and long-term game. Take the time to find these people and build it up.
Yeah, because I was going to say as well, like, if it's writing that's sort of the difficulty, maybe collaborations with like producers and that kind of thing as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's so many options.
Yeah, it doesn't just have to be with songwriters. Okay, cool. So Brad is asking, hi Damo, I've been gigging for 2 years and still don't think I've been discovered by the right people. Is there a way that I can network better?
Yes. So Brad says, I've been gigging for 2 years and I haven't been discovered. I think that phrase there, before we talk about anything else, is very important. That this crops up a lot. Haven't been discovered. Now, this is 2017. Now, in 1965, that was important. We needed to be discovered. That was the way it worked. And the reason why we needed to be discovered is because the way the music industry worked back then was very different to the way it is now. And the reason why it was different was because technology was different. So in order to hire Abbey Road Studio or Sarn Studio, one of those big studios, it would cost thousands of pounds every single day. And as an artist, you can't afford that. You needed the backing of a label, because not only the recording process was insanely expensive, but on top of that, the manufacturing costs, because you had to make sure that your record was in every HMV, every Hour Price, every Woolworths, every every record shop. So you had to physically print. Every single one of them was crazy expensive. So the manufacturing costs would be huge. And then on top of that, how are you going to distribute that and get the advertising out there as well? Huge costs that used to be. So you needed to be discovered. Nowadays, we don't need to be discovered by the music industry. There is no gatekeeper in the music industry. We need to be discovered, and this is the point, we need to be discovered by the audience. So, for example, because I'm a musician as such, I'm a bass player, and I'm old school and I'm slightly older, I love real guitars, bass, drum type music. So when a band comes along and they're riffy, because I grew up with sort of riffs and heavy stuff, you need me to discover you. Not because I'm in the music industry, but because I'm the guy who's likely to buy that sort of record. So when it comes to being discovered, you're not trying to be discovered by the music industry, because the way you get discovered by the music industry is you get discovered by the audience. The audience grows, and then on top of that, you get discovered by the music industry. The music industry is constantly watching, always. And it's Brad, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you would be surprised, Brad, if you've been gigging for 2 years, there will be lots of people in the music industry that you've no idea who are there, who know who you are, because that's the way the music industry works. The music industry people, despite the fact that there's the funny running joke where someone walks in and always comes up to you and goes, "No, I work for a record label," they don't do that, because why would you? It just creates hassle for themselves when they then say no, and it's awkward. But the music industry's job is to watch, is to discover new artists. So I did a podcast a couple of days back, which was great, and the guy was all about new music, and he works for Universal, and he's discovering new music all the time. I guarantee he doesn't go into every gig just announcing himself as from Universal, but he will be watching all of these bands, and then if he likes something, he'll say, come on the podcast. That's what I want you to do. I want you to come on the podcast. And so you've got to get past the discovered, because discovered is not a thing anymore. That's so traditional and so old school that it's like just, the chances of Mr. EMI walking past, hearing something and going, "That's what I want, that's exactly what I'm looking for." It's a lottery, and you don't want to play a lottery. You want to actually take the luck away from it, and you want to build the audience. So if you're going to get discovered, you've got to get discovered by the right people, as you said. The right people is the audience. Now, if it comes to networking is very, very easy when all of a sudden you're making your name for yourself. So let me tell you a story. Come with me on a journey back in time. So my history is I owned a very large music college / university, for people who don't know, called the Brighton Institute of Modern Music, which is now the British Institute of Modern Music. I was one of 4 directors, but I owned it. At that time, before I left, the amount of people that would ring up or email on a daily basis asking for things. Can you please come and judge a battle of the bands? Can you please add a radio show? Can you please feature us on the radio show? It was constant, just a barrage of people. And then in 2010, I left the company and I sold it. And I went home to a place called Storrington, where nothing else is.
Where's Storrington?
Exactly. And from that point, everything went. There was no phone calls, there was no emails, there was no texts, there was no offers. They all went because I wasn't in the position where I brought value to people. I didn't bring anything. It was a lonely time. And then I kind of built up a new business, which is the management company. And all of a sudden, people start to sniff around it a little bit, and then it grows and more people sniff around it. And then I start doing the social media. And now, all of a sudden, people are asking for advice. They're asking for me to get involved in stuff. They're asking for me to do keynotes. They're asking for me to consult with their businesses, with their social media, with their bands. So the best way that you can network is you can bring value to people. And the way that you can bring value as an artist is by, again, going back to building your audience yourself, so that your audience starts to grow, because you become a more attractive offer. Because if you have got 10,000 fans as such who love what you do, then the music industry take note. But also then manufacturers take note, because that's the modern way we advertise. We have to get in front of the right people. Now, if the right people for you, if you're a singer-songwriter with an acoustic guitar, then imagine if you could get in front of Passenger's audience, or imagine if you could get in front of Mumford & Sons audience. Well, you can do that. but you have to pay money to do that, and that's what a lot of people do. So when you've got the audience, people come to you and say, you've got the perfect audience for this new acoustic guitar that I've got. I want to get it in front of 10,000 people. And if I can give you the acoustic guitar to play on a gig, then people will see it and we can advertise it, etc. Well, take that away from just obviously sponsorship with acoustic guitars. It happens with everything. When you go and watch YouTubers, the amount of stuff that's just there, bottles of water or drink, where they just send it through and just go, have some of this, maybe you could feature on our blog. So the audience wins. So you've put how we can be discovered right by the right people, and I feel like you're thinking that the right people are music industry people, and they 100% are not. I'm not saying this is a 50-50 thing. You don't need to do that. You are thinking in an old school way. That is not the way to do it. From here on in, you are going to think of it like this. I couldn't give a fuck what the music industry think. I literally couldn't give a toss what the music industry think of me. However, if the music industry like what I do and they want to come on board, I'm in. But if they don't, couldn't give a shit, because I'm going to do this with or without them. And when you have that attitude and it starts to grow and you start to look at how you bring value to the audience instead of music industry people, the music industry people will jump on board because they will see what value you're bringing to the audience.
Yeah, it's all like a numbers game these days, isn't it?
So stop thinking you need to get discovered, because discovery is for the Discovery Channel.
It's about the people. Okay, so this is from Tom. It says, hi Damo, I'm 17 and desperate to start a band. How would you advise recruiting band members in an area with a tiny music scene?
Right, yeah, so tiny music scenes are hard. So for example, I have a lot of people who watch this who are in London or Brighton, Leeds, Manchester, lots of people who are watching from over in the States. But what happens if you're from country bumpkin land and there just aren't the musicians? Yeah. And so trying to find them. So in which case, there are two bits of advice for this, because I do see this quite regularly when you live in a very small area. You might need to travel, and public transport might be your friend. But number one, there will be musicians in your area. There absolutely will. So you might have to compromise a little bit, because there might be a guitarist who's into a slightly different genre, but he will be there. So then it comes down to, how do you find those musicians? And more importantly, how do you convince them that you are a winning option to take a punt on? So the way you do this, as is always the case, is building your audience, but using social media. And so this is what I mean by that. So I'm going to say Tom's a bass player. He's probably watching going, I'm not a bass player. Why would I be a bass player? But
you are now.
You are today. You are a bass player. So Tom's a bass player, and Tom starts to actually get really good at bass playing, and he starts to put his journey out there as a bass player. He starts to say, here's me playing the type of music that I like, and here's me talking about the type of music that I like, and here's me saying, I've just bought the new Bruno Mars album or Metallica album or whatever it is, and I absolutely love it. And you're actually doing this in a way that everyone can see. So you're not doing this just on your Facebook, but you're actually putting yourself out there as a public figure, which is a musician, on your own Facebook, on your own YouTube, and you're starting to look at ways that you can actually start to push it. Now, the other thing then you're going to start to do is this is the proof. This is the social proofing, so that when these musicians see you, they just think, this person is a better option than where I am right now. So, for example, one thing you can do is you can actually go and find bands in your area that are already formed and say to them, if your bass player can't do a gig, then let me jump in. Don't cancel a gig because your bass player can't do it. Let me jump in and actually be the bass player. No pressure. Just give me a set. I'll learn it. And that, therefore, you've got a bunch of kind of ins and links. So should that bass player leave, you can jump straight into it. If you're looking for direct musicians yourself, then you need, because again, there will be musicians out there, you need these musicians to know that when you approach them, and this is the key, not them approach you, when you approach them, they say, I might be looking for a band. Then they see your stuff and go, oh, actually, yeah, this guy's right on it. So it's what you bring to the party, what you bring to the table in terms of your organizational skills, and what you bring to the party in terms of your social media savvy, what you bring to the party and how good you look, what you bring to the party and how good you are as a musician. And so you're pushing this out there. So when Mr. Guitarist sees the bass player and goes, wow, this kid's really on it, he's going to be thinking, I'll do an extra band with you. And it could be an extra band. It could already be in a band. But you could say, do you know what, though? I want to hedge my bets because I love my band. But this bass player is really, really good. So I want to just do this on the side, and all of a sudden you're starting to pull him away and then start to build a project. And musicians are very, very fickle. They're very loyal in a lot of ways because they love their bands and they love their music. However, when something is taking off, musicians will jump onto that thing as fast as they can, because musicians need to be selfish. They need to actually think about their own career. And if something looks like it's about to take off, they will want to be involved in it. So your job is to make yourself look like you're taking off, regardless whether they like it or whether they don't do it or don't like it. And you do that via social media so that they can see it and the social proof is there. And then you start actually going and looking for musicians. And the way you look for musicians is a million different ways, but I think everyone listening to this now knows the answer to this question when it comes to it. How do you find musicians? Well, there's Twitter searches, there's YouTube searches, there's Google searches, then there's local bands in your area, then there's actually talking to musicians and asking about other musicians, then there's even record shops and putting up physical posters. There's taking to YouTube and actually making a video and saying, I'm a bass player, I really want to join a band, this is the music I'm into, I love it, and then boosting that video to just guitarists, drummers and singers, for example, saying, if you want to be in a band with me, I'm great at social media, I'm a really strong bass player and this is the music I'm into, if you're interested, get in touch with me below. And then you advertise that within a 10-mile radius for just guitarists, bass players and drummers between the age of whatever he is, 3 years below, 3 years above, whatever you want it to be, and that advert goes straight out to them. So there's a million ways you can do it, but this all comes down to how much work you can put in. It's the distribution. It's just like making a record. It's the distribution, how you can actually just keep on going, how you can find forums on Facebook and actually put adverts in there, but not one, not two, not three, not four, but just every week. I'm still looking for a band. I'm still looking for a band. Because you might catch someone at the right time, which I think is quite important. Someone might say, I'd love to be in a band with you, it's just that I'm not around for the next 3 months. Or you might actually put that message out and someone might just say, that is, we talk about luck. That is lucky. It's not lucky. It's not lucky at all because you put the advert out, but that's lucky. My band's just broken up and I'm looking for a new project. This could be fun. It's not lucky. You put the work in and you made the decisions to make something happen. And if you do that 10 times, one of those things will feel lucky, but it's not.
Also, just going off Tom's age as well, do you think that thinking about going on to a music college is a good idea, perhaps?
I think so, yeah. I think that's another great idea. So there's so many great ideas that you can do. It's a creative idea. Go to your music college and actually, your local one, because there'll be local performing arts colleges, there'll be the big ones, there'll be small music colleges, there'll be open mic nights, there'll be so many things that you can just find out where musicians hang out. Do you know another thing you could do as well is, you could go and talk to one of your best. This is how I got recruited into being a musician. My best mate wanted to start a band and he was a guitarist and he was like, I don't want any bass players. I want to be in a band. I need a bass player. And he said to me, do you know what we could do? We should start a band. I was like, yeah, how cool would that be? And he was like, yeah, you couldn't be the guitarist though because I want to be the guitarist. So I was like, oh, okay, what do I do? And he said, you'd be the bass player. So I was like, okay, yeah. And he was like, but you need a bass and an amp. I was like, so I went home, like 14 years old, and I was like, for my 15th birthday, could I have a bass for my birthday? Never look back. Been a bass player ever since. So
there'll always be someone keen. Definitely.
Yeah, so find these people and just say, look, take the time. We're going to learn it. We're going to find someone who can learn to play bass or learn to play drums or learn to play guitar or learn to play keyboards and put the time into teaching them. If there aren't people in the area, then train them up. Go and find someone and say, we're going to do a band, you and me. And they'll be like, okay, I'll have a go. It's another option. There's so many options. This comes down to how much work you can put in to find the right people.
Cool. And that was our last question.
That was the last question. Amazing. So if you have any questions, then all you have to do is take to Twitter, #AskDamo, and we'll come and find you. Or if not, just send me a message on Twitter, send me a message on Facebook, whatever it is. It can be about business, social media. Obviously, the music industry is something that I work in a lot. Doesn't matter whether it's covers bands. It doesn't matter whether it's originals music. It doesn't matter whether it's rap or hip hop or it's metal. There is no judgment. It's respect for all aspects of music, all aspects of business, and all aspects of social media. So don't think your question is too small or too niche or too genre. So come and hit me up. Do me a favor. Subscribe to my YouTube, which is youtube.com/Damian Keys. That would be the best way that you could say thank you for me doing this content, because there's no money involved. And other than that, thank you very much for watching. So we'll see you again next week.